5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is the Culture Clash.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome, everybody. It is Friday, January 17th at 8 p.m., which means it's time for Culture Clash Live. We have a great show ahead of you tonight. We are wrapping up our coverage of Star Wars Skeleton Crew as the finale has aired, episode 8, The Real Good Guys. I'm so glad to think of us here at the Fandom Podcast Network as the real good guys. That makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And speaking of good guys, I have a few on my crew this week to help spread the good vibes. And of course, first and foremost, I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, my brother from another mother, and the man who has put in overtime on Skeleton Crew notes all through our coverage of Skeleton Crew, the one and only Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
What is up? Good to be back. A little sad the Skeleton Crew is over, but looking forward to talking about it.
That we are, and of course, too, the queen of movie food. She's not normally the TV person. She likes to binge watch, but we pulled her in for this, and it was a whole new experience for her as she has joined us week to week. So without further ado, let me bring in the one and only Miss Lacey Adderhole.
Hello.
Welcome, Lacey. Welcome.
I'm very excited talking about the finale. Woohoo.
Well, we are going to be talking about the finale. Of course, this is Culture Clash, the flagship show of the Fandom Podcast Network. And a brief shout out there to our good friend Ghostbusters Quick Response Unit.
What's up, Chris? What's up?
I might have some ghosts up in my attic. Can you be over here in less than 30 minutes? Or do I get, if you don't do it, I get free slime? That's just what I want to know. But guys, we are you are watching Culture Clash on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. And we've got Skeleton Crew to talk about, as well as a lot of other great things happening around fandom. And of course, the news everybody is talking about is the finale of Skeleton Crew. We're going to be diving deep into that. So spoiler warnings ahead. We're going to be diving deep into Skeleton Crew and several other things, including movie and TV that have been out in fandom. So, you know what? If you haven't watched Skeleton Crew, go back, go watch it, come back, join us, get in with the chat. We love to have your guys' opinions as we're going along. It always makes the show a little bit more interesting. And of course, too, you can get more Skeleton Crew perspective with What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars exclusive podcast. The gentlemen over at the Drunken Gungan have been covering Skeleton Crew in their own way, and it's been a lot of fun there. So check out What a Piece of Junk on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel or on our audio feeds. And of course, we will have later some Let's News and some Buy It, Stream It, or Unsee It. But first and foremost, let's talk about what's coming soon and what's just arrived here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And we got a lot of stuff going on. Of course, you're watching Culture Clash, everything with Skeleton Crew. We've just wrapped up our coverage of Lower Decks on the Union Federation podcast, and we'll be soon jumping into our special 10-episode limited series covering the Orville, where we're going to give some crew profiles, but we're also going to sneak in a little something extra with that, too, because we will be covering things with Section 31. And the Lethal Malt's been busy. He just put out his latest episode covering the cult classic Leviathan. Kevin, a little Amanda Pays is always good in my life, so I was enjoying that particular podcast. And then, Kevin, you and I are joining the Mullet this weekend to record the first episode of a project he's been working on. You have your Viper ready? Is it tuned up? Are we good?
Yeah. Mullet Star Galactica. We're going to be covering the 1978 original Battlestar Galactica.
And, of course, Time Warp. We wrapped up last year with finishing out this with December of 1984. And we will soon be dropping the first episode of this year's Time Warp edition, which we are covering the movies of 1990, and we're starting off with January and a couple classics in that, including Tremors and Internal Affairs. And of course, over at Couch Potato Theater, we've been extremely busy. We've been doing a little James Cameron retrospective because a lot of his films just came out in 4K. We kicked things off with The Terminator. And of course, we had 10-year anniversary of John Wick. So Kevin suited up once again, and we talked all things John Wick. of course, continuing our Cameron coverage, we did Aliens, and part of that was the amazing documentary Aliens Expanded, over 4 hours long, covering the making of Aliens, or it's 6 hours if you add in the special features, which, of course, that is the Lacey Adderhold special, as we call it. So, and of course, we had a little fun too. Of course, Time Warp was 1984. We picked out one of the movies of 1984, a great Michael Keaton film in Johnny Dangerously. And of course, we had our Christmas edition of Couch Potato Theater with Lacey's pick, The Long Kiss Goodnight. And then we just recently put out, continuing our James Cameron retrospective, The Abyss. And we will be putting out shortly. It's an instant potato over at Couch Potato Theater. We did Deadpool and Wolverine. We were joined by our good friend Cat Cedar, or as we call him, Catpool, because he is one of the biggest Deadpool fans out there. We had a lot of fun revisiting Deadpool and Wolverine in the first ever Couch Potato Theater Instant Potato Show. And of course, coming up on Couch Potato Theater, we have something very fun planned. We are going to be doing a Canon Films retrospective. If you love the 80s films, nothing brought the action, nothing brought the insanity like a good Canon film. And Kevin, you're kicking things off with maybe the ultimate Canon film, or films, should I say.
Yeah, we're going to be showing some love for the first two American Ninja films. I got them right here on the Kino Lorber Blu-ray releases, which I know Lacey also got. Big influence on my Ninja fandom, so excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. A little Michael Dudikoff never hurt anybody. And of course, we are doing a little Arnold too, 1985, 40 years for Commando. Kevin, I'm feeling really old.
Yeah, well, not just that, but we're also doing it for Valentine's Day. This was Lacey's Valentine's Day pick movie. And by the way, a couple things. By the way, our buddy Chris, Ghostbusters response, he's really excited for the Mullet Star Galactica. And speaking of Mullet Star Galactica, hanging out with us right now is Adam O'Brien, the host of Lethal Mullet, and of course, Mullet Star Galactica. What's up, Adam? Good to see you.
Oh, always good to see them all in the house, and nothing like a good saw blade decapitation for Valentine's Day, just saying. But we got a lot of things going on here at the Fandom Podcast Network. Please go check them out, as we love to feed your ears with all kinds of fun things. But we got some stuff to cover here. So without further ado,
Let's news.
and while there's not a lot of news to cover, there's been a couple interesting things that have happened, and one a little bit of a sad note. The director David Lynch passed away this week. For me, he was not exactly my cup of tea. He got a little out there, but you can't ignore what his impact on film was when you talk about Twin Peaks, Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, Dune 1984, so many things. Again, not particularly my cup of tea. Kevin, I don't believe he was exactly your cup of tea either.
Oh, no. I respect his vision. I respect his place in movie history, but I'm not a fan of his movies, to be honest with you. The only one that I remember liking, but I haven't seen it in such a long time, so I don't know if it's aged well enough for me, is Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage. I did, of course, watch the Twin Peaks series, but I don't know if it was you, Lacey. You kind of hit the nail on the head. Someone said, once you get towards so much weird stuff happening, you really don't care what happened to Laura Palmer. It's just.
It wasn't that. I actually have never seen Twin Peaks because.
Okay, maybe it was someone. I can't remember, but it's not a real watchable for me, and I didn't watch the reboot or whatever it was. But I'm just not a fan of his movies.
I will say that there is an episode of Psych that it's called Dual Spires, which is a direct takeoff of Twin Peaks, and it is delightful because even though I don't understand any of it, because a lot of the same actors, they pulled a lot of Twin Peaks actors into it.
Okay,
and it was hilarious to me, even though I didn't get any of like the inside jokes. You know what? The thing is, he did so much for film, just with the way he wrote his screenplays, the way he directed, that kind of thing. Whether you like his films or not, the technology he employed was valuable.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I know Kyle MacLachlan put out a very nice statement about David Lynch, basically saying, I have no career if it's not for David Lynch. He gave me a chance when nobody else would, especially when it came to Dune. His first big blockbuster film, and he's like he credits his whole life and changing David Lynch for changing his life. So I definitely will go down in the records as far as his impact on film and TV. A little bit out there for my taste, but I respect him for what he did.
Chris on the chat says, "I love '80s Dune just for the quotes." Says, "I've used the sleeper has awakened many a time."
Haven't we all at some point?
I have not. No, I have
not. But one of the big things for 2025 that I am incredibly excited for is Daredevil Born Again, which comes out March 4th. I was a huge fan of the Netflix Daredevil series. I think Charlie Cox has been amazing in the role. And Marvel dropped a new trailer for Born Again. I am incredibly excited. Lacey, I know you don't really tend to watch the trailers too much because you don't want to be spoiled. But Kevin, did you watch this trailer?
Oh, of course I did. Yeah.
And what were your thoughts?
I'm trying to temper my expectations, to be honest with you. But it was at a point where I was kind of feeling how Lacey feels about it. Like, I don't want too much to be spoiled. I was trying to remember, though, how many episodes are we getting, Kyle? Do you remember?
I think they're breaking it into two sections of it's either 9 episodes and then a break and then another like 5 or 6, or they're doing just 12 episodes altogether. I can't remember how they're breaking it up, but I know that they are. I'm pretty sure they are breaking.
Are you excited?
I am very excited. Again, anytime Charlie Cox puts on the Daredevil suit, I'm all in. I loved seeing him on She-Hulk when he was there. The fact that John Barenthal is coming back as the Punisher has me incredibly excited. It's just I loved what they did with the Netflix Daredevil, and the fact that they kind of pumped the brakes on this and took it back into the direction, bringing back a lot of the people from Netflix that were originally involved in the remake of the start of Born Again and brought them in to give it that flavor. I cannot wait for this. This is this is one of my big things for 2025 as far as my excitement level goes. So I am
Tuesday, March 4th was I think. Yeah. By the way, Lacey reminded us, Kyle, we do have to mention the passing of Bob Uecker. Mr. Baseball himself. Yeah, Mr. Baseball himself. Of course, a lot of casual fans know him in the major league films as well. As Harry Doyle, the announcer, and he's been around baseball for a very, very long time. Passed away at the age of 90, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was 90. I remember him too. He had that great run on this TV show, Mr. Belvedere, for several years on that. Obviously, a lot of people know him from Major League. Was a huge influence in baseball. Called several World Series with Bob Costas, in fact. Especially in the 90s, and was Kevin, do you remember those great Miller Lite commercials he used to do back in?
I must be in the front row. Hell yeah, I do.
Yeah. Where the real Uecker seats were, and I just got to share this fun little story about Bob Uecker. The Uecker seats were always a joke because it was always like the last row in the stadium and stuff like that. At Milwaukee Stadium, where he was the announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers for decades, they actually have $1 seats that are obstructed and up in the last row, and they are officially called the Uecker seats.
I have a Uecker because he used to play baseball back in the day. Mm-hmm. I actually have a Bob Uecker baseball card somewhere because I remember I wanted to have one with me, and I don't think it was like a rookie card or anything, but I just wanted a baseball card with his actual picture on it,
Yeah. Well, I'm always heartfelt to me. And Lacey, you reminded us to talk about him. What are your Bob Uecker memories?
I just, what is it? Just a bit outside. Like that's everybody knows where that's from. And I think, did he have like a cameo in Basketball as well? I feel like
it's so long. I don't remember.
Well. Yeah. I don't do the sports ball. I mean, that's just not my jam. Give me a good sports ball movie though, especially a sports ball comedy, and I'm in. And Mr. Belvedere, I mean, come on. Sad day.
Yeah,
but 90 years old. That's a good run.
I know Bob Costas and Pat O'Brien were on basketball. But
Bob Costas with the "You're excited? Look at my nipples or feel my nipples." Like, that's just what?
God, there's a lot of cameos in that movie, actually.
Oh yeah.
Just quick response. I have much respect for a man that can make fun of himself, and Bob Uecker was great at it. What we needed was the Bob Uecker Jason Bateman booth, though, Kevin.
Sorry, what?
You needed the Bob Uecker Jason Bateman booth, or from his dodgeball character. But Bob Uecker in a sports broadcasting booth with Jason Bateman's character.
Oh, okay, as Jason Bateman's character in. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of fun. But
what was his name? Cotton? Is that his name? No.
Yeah.
What was his name? Cotton was the other guy.
Yeah.
I can't.
We'll think of it and get back to it.
Yeah.
But guys, that's going to wrap up the news section. So let's get into the heart of this week's episode. Spoiler alerts ahead, as I am going to hand the controls of the podcast over to our Skeleton Crew expert, the man who has done yeoman's work throughout this run, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
All right. Yeah. So we are covering the final episode of Skeleton Crew season 1, possibly the final episode ever of Skeleton Crew, called it's episode 8, The Real Good Guys. And let's go ahead and get a little plot synopsis here. All right. Jod continues to pose as a Republic emissary. He orders Wim, Neil, and KB to be confined to the quarters while he takes Fern and Farah to meet the supervisor, who is revealed to be a massive droid. When the supervisor contradicts Jod's claim about being a Jedi, revealing to have learned of Order 66, Jod is forced to destroy the supervisor. This causes a blackout in the city and shuts down the safety droids. As the pirates invade Ad-Atten with the intent of enslaving the population, Wim, Wendell, Neil, and KB race to the Onyx Cinder. With the ship locked in place, Wim and Wendell devise a plan to distract Jod so Wendell can restore power. This enables KB and repaired SM-33 to launch and fly the ship past the barrier to call Kim for help. Shortly after, the Onyx Cinder is shot down by the pirates. Meanwhile, on At-Atten, Win, Wendell, Fern, and Farah all tussle with Jod. While Wim and Fern separate Jod from his lightsaber, Wendell and a reluctant Farah destroy the barrier. This allows the New Republic forces to arrive and deal with the pirates, shooting down their ship and forcing Jod to admit defeat. Everyone then races to the Onyx Cinder crash site to find KB alive and well. Wim looks up to the sky in amazement as the New Republic ships arriving on At-Atten. His power is restored. All right, guys, let's get your first reactions, instant reactions. Lacey, let's start with you.
Instant reaction is that if we don't have another 3 seasons confirmed immediately, I'm going to just stop watching all Star Wars. I'm so excited after seeing this. They're opening up for there's so many things they can go, like places they can go from here. I know we'll get to that towards the end, but I'm very excited to see if they're gonna go ahead and renew it and give us several more seasons. Also, please physical media and not the stupid steelbooks. Give me an actual Blu-ray case.
Kyle, your instant reactions.
So I'm kind of a mixed bag. There's some things I absolutely love about this episode, but there's some incredible frustrations, and this is more to do with how they're doing Star Wars shows right now and what they did with Skeleton Crew. The episode itself has some good highlights, but I really felt like they didn't give us any of the answers we were actually looking for out of this episode. I think they left a lot of things hanging, much like the Acolyte, where, we're going to leave all this stuff hanging when we have no idea if we're getting any more seasons or not. And I think that's not a good thing. But as far as the characters themselves, Jude Law was phenomenal in this episode. The kids were phenomenal. It had some great fun moments in it as far as just memories tying back to the nostalgia factor, as always. I think certain things they did reveal were very intriguing, but it felt like they left a lot on the bone, Kevin.
Yeah, it's funny when you see Wim looking up at the stars. I'm like, don't end there. Oh, damn it.
And see, I was the opposite. I was like, oh, end. This is the end. Good, stop.
Oh man, no, I liked it. I liked the episode though, but yeah, there was some questions we had brought up that we didn't get certain answers to. Chris says, I like how much Jude Law made me hate him. Yeah. Yes.
I will say one thing. We had guessed, Kyle had said 45 minutes. I said 112. You said 35. So Kevin, you win by getting closest without going over, because it was 36 minutes.
Yeah, they weren't going to give us long episodes. I've learned my lesson expecting more than that, Yeah, I know. But I did enjoy the episode. I was happy that we got some closure with Ad-Atten and being the shield coming down or whatever, and the pirates losing, but it did kind of leave some questions out there. Maybe we'll address some of those coming up. But overall, I thought it was a good series. But I'm with you, Lacey. I was like, I want more from these people. I want more from this cast. I want more of this story, especially since it takes place during the Mandalorian, Mandoverse time frame. Even if we don't get them in their own series or movie, I would love it if somehow they are, back in Star Wars in one way or another.
Crossover. Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about that more later.
Oh.
But I do have some Easter eggs and trivia and stuff. And I got some good ones for you guys here. They're going to be fun to talk about. Now, one of the things that we were wondering from day one, guys, is what kind of alien is Neil and his family? Well, guess what, guys? I got an answer to that now. I also want to give a shout out to Derek Marsh, who found the article before I did and posted it in our What a Piece of Junk Facebook here. So thank you. This is from collider.com, by the way. And the first season, the article goes on to say the first season of Star Wars Skeleton Crew is officially over. And one of the greatest gifts of the show delivered to Star Wars fans is Neil, voiced by Robert Timothy Smith. Not only just an adorable creature who can rival even Grogu with his cuteness, Smith's performance bringing Neil to life elevated the character into being one of the most lovable new creations Star Wars has delivered. Not only in Disney Plus era, but ever. Similar to Grogu and Yoda, Neil's species was unknown to the fan base, but during a recent interview with Collider's Maggie Lovett, Skeleton Crew's creator, John Watts and Christopher Ford spilled the beans. While initially going back and forth and declining to drop the bomb during the interview, not wanting to get anyone in trouble, Ford revealed after the interview that Skeleton Crew's Neil and his adorable family are part of the Mykian species. Let me spell that for you guys. Myykkian. And it's a Star Wars name when you have like a letter that's not like a popular vowel with more, that's, more than one, So it's the Mykian species. Sorry to everyone who was holding out hope that he and Max Rebo shared more than just their incredible levels of swagger. And it got quickly put up onto StarWarsFandom.com wiki or Wikipedia. Mykians were a species of elephantine humanoids that lived in the galaxy. The species possessed blue skin and was elephantine in appearance, including a long trunk-like nose and two eyes. They also possess a head of hair. The youngling Neil and his family were members of the species. And a little behind the scenes here by Kristen Baver on StarWars.com. And, quote, no, Neil isn't the same species as Max Rebo, we asked. The Mykian species was created for the character of Neil, who appears in the live-action television series Star Wars Skeleton Crew, where he is portrayed by Robert Timothy Smith using a combination of facial motion capture, on-set performance in a costume, and the animatronic head. In response to fan debate to whether Neil was an Ortolan like Max Rebo, Leland Chi of the Lucas Story Group film confirmed that Neil's species was its own alien race, which was later also confirmed by the series creator Christopher Ford. The species was finally identified January 16th, 2025 in the season finale of The Real Good Guys via Collider. Guys, your thoughts on this new species that we now have introduced and confirm, if I'm pronouncing it right, the Mykians? Lacey.
I don't care what species he is. He's adorable, and I just want to squeeze him. He's adorable and just with the little cheeks and the little. Oh, I love him. I don't. Yeah. Yay.
I don't think the world is going to be satisfied until there is a Neil Squishmallow.
I just got actually.
I got my Black Series figure right here. I had to pick him up.
I'm excited because somewhere in this box, ginormous box, is a Neil.
Do you want to explain to the audio listeners what you're holding up, Lacey?
I haven't gotten there yet. I got the oh my gosh, what's the name of the ship?
Onyx Cinder.
My brain just went nope. I got the Onyx Cinder Star Wars Lego. This is very exciting, and it comes with each of the 4 kids and a Jod minifigs, and so I'm very excited about that. And you can see if you're on the YouTube, you can see I'm holding up what the little guys
look at him. There he is.
So cute they are. I'm so excited. So I'll be all right. That's going to be like a week's worth of don't call me.
Kyle?
Well, like I said, he is the breakout character of the show for a lot of people. I mean, just between the actor's voice, the way the character looks, this is going to be a character that people are going to demand they see in other Star Wars things at some point. They cannot leave this character off of something, even if he just gets a cameo somewhere. Which, it all goes into a conversation we're going to have a little later about what the future of Skeleton Crew is.
Yep. All right, next, got a Screen Rant article here that gave us a lot of cool Easter eggs and references, guys. And if you got this one, the Republic message about Jedi traitors, Order 66 and the Revenge of the Sith, the last message the supervisor received from the Republic was that all Jedi were traitors. This connects to the events of Order 66 and the Jedi Purge and Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine's public explanation to justify killing the Jedi Order that led to the dawn of the Galactic Empire. So I'm kind of curious about this. Does this mean this is the last time that they had communication with the Republic then?
That would be my guess, is that, I mean, that was the impression I even got it from the beginning of the show. They've been isolated and haven't heard from the Republic probably in a good while. Who knows if Palpatine even knew AT-AT existed?
Yeah.
I think the conversation with the droid, what's it called, the creator or whatever,
supervisor.
Yeah, I think that conversation, I feel like because the what's it called, the dome or whatever anyway, I think
the barrier.
The barrier, yeah. I mean, because that prevented all signals going out. I mean, they were waiting on a ship that was specifically already designed to be able to get through that barrier. So they basically sent out Moses, down the river and was just waiting for him to come back.
Right.
That's why they didn't have there were no protocols involved in, checking Jod's references to make sure he was a Republic emissary. Like because he had the ship, because he had control of the ship. But the thing is, if they knew that the ship left, they knew the ship left the atmosphere. So it coming back, there really wasn't. I feel like they should have maybe had some more safety protocols.
Yeah, there are little things that didn't line up there, but the next thing that's related to that is the supervisor tower was mirroring Palpatine's throne room. Both the exterior and interior of the supervisor's tower mirrored Palpatine's throne room aboard the second Death Star. This includes the 2 security droids who take the place of the royal guards when Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker come up in the elevator and return the Jedi, but also how the supervisor turns to face its visitors, just like Palpatine sitting in the throne. I kind of got a flashback to the supervisor a little bit. Kyle was, remember when She-Hulk was breaking the fourth wall and going to find the Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too.
Nothing, Kyle.
No, I got that. I got that. I definitely got a little bit of that feeling, but I kind of had a little bit of feeling of the black hole when they're walking through and there's dust all over the control panels and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, this room isn't creepy at all.
The next one I got for you guys is Jod killing the supervisor, mirroring Qui-Gon Jinn driving his lightsaber in the droid's big red eye. Some viewers will likely see a parallel between Jod killing the supervisor and Qui-Gon melting the Trade Federation doors at the beginning of the Phantom Menace. I definitely caught on to that when that happened. I'm like, that's not many times as the lightsaber
He gave it that little extra oomph on his twist too when he killed the supervisor.
Oh yeah. Next, all security droids were deactivated, just like the Phantom Menace. When the supervisor dies, all of AT-AT's power goes out, and all the security droids are deactivated. The droid's mass deactivation is not unlike the Phantom Menace when the control ship is destroyed, allowing the Gungan army to simply push the battle droids over on Naboo, just like Wim does. Yeah. Lacey?
Okay, question, thoughts. For me, in my head, his supervisor's not dead. He's just he's just disassembled, right? There's a very Johnny.
I don't know. Lightsaber to the brain. That kind of means a little more than deactivated, if you ask me.
Right, but the brain pan. I mean, let's face it. There have to be protocol, like backups and all this other stuff. So I understand.
You would think
that while it's been taken out, and the fact of the matter is, when Jod says he's a droid, and the mother was just like, well, yeah, it's worked out so far. That to me says that the droid, they have to have backed him up I just don't think that he's gone all the way. I feel like this is a Johnny 5, no disassemble situation.
Well, since they didn't bring him back, I'm gonna say he's dead.
I'm going to guess because they did establish it. It's been hundreds of years on AT-AT that they've been behind the barrier. So I'm going to guess the technology is probably fairly old. I mean, they're obviously using some older technology with the supervisor goes down and everything goes down like battle droids. So there could not be I think there's a possibility there is no backup to the supervisor because I don't think they expected anything to happen to the supervisor.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when there's no guard, there's no nothing. There's literally nothing to keep someone from just waltzing in there and just whacking him with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
So
next we have Hover Bikes to the Rescue, an amazing parallel to E.T. The gang of kids and Wim's dad hover biking to the rescue is very much a callback to the 1982's E.T. the Extraterrestrial. They even have a big jump across a cliff mirroring when E.T. makes all the kids' bikes fly near the end of the major Steven Spielberg movie. That was a fun scene. I definitely caught those vibes. That was nice.
Yep.
Next, we have Jod's Jedi Master in Order 66 Survival. Finally, Jod Nanawood reveals his Jedi past in Skeleton Crew Episode 8, trying to make Wim understand that the galaxy is a cold, dark place. He confirms that a Jedi once found him and taught him a few things as a starving child, only to later be killed by the Empire. While unnamed, it's likely Jod's brief master was killed by an Imperial Inquisitor in the aftermath of Order 66 and the Jedi Purge. As Jod says, she was struggling just as much as he had been, meaning she was likely on the run and being hunted as many Jedi were. See, this is something here that I would love to have gotten more of a backstory on. And I've heard people say, oh, well, just put it in a comic book or a book. I'm like, I'm not going to read that crap. I want to see this stuff I want to see this filmed. I want to see Jod survive this. And then we get a flashback to maybe a younger version of himself. Kyle, you got thoughts?
Well, to kind of expand on that, there was an article in Entertainment Weekly that I read today where they were interviewing John Watts and I believe one of the producers, and they said they actually have a bottle episode written that tells this backstory.
And when are we going to see that?
Well, it depends on if we get a season two or not. I think they maybe have. This is one of those times where you could have made one more episode and thrown that in.
Yeah, or some flashback. Give me like an extra 5 minutes, because him saying that would have been great to have like a little montage of what it was like when he was that age and his Jedi master being hunted down and killed. I mean, that would have really, really been cool. That would have been nice to kind of see. But at least verbally, we got, some type of reference to that. So that's good.
When does this take place in reference to Ahsoka?
Same time.
Okay.
It's during the Mandalorian era, and Ahsoka does. So yeah.
I know. I'm still very confused just to the timeline. I have to write it down or I'll never
Yeah.
remember it. I just was trying to figure out if maybe there was a, someone from.
Speaking of Kyle, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get any connection to this money possibly being used by Grand Admiral Thrawn, to help pay for stuff. So yeah.
I want to bring this up real quick. Island Fox 9. So who turned the lights back on? I think you would think maybe the Republic did something to turn the lights back on the city, but
or maybe it was a generator inside the what's it called again? The droid.
Or Ghostbusters says, "Oh wait, did the dad do it when he turned the power on to do the docking clamps?"
Questions. All right, next, guys, I've got Wim mirrors Finn blue lightsaber and all, activating the lightsaber right side up after his dad and Fern's mom deactivate the barrier in Skeleton Crew episode 8. Wim very much looks like Finn in The Force Awakens when he similarly activates a blue lightsaber both on Takodana and to face Kylo Ren at the end of the movie. Their jackets also look very similar. Did you guys catch that at all?
Yes, and he's got just fantastic hair. That kid's got great hair.
Yeah, he does.
Right? Yeah.
I want to see him join a metal band and grow that out. So there you go. All right, this is I was excited about. One of my favorite ships in Star Wars are the B-wings, and it was nice to see the B-wings doing what B-wings should do. We didn't get a lot of this in the trilogy at all. B-wings attacking with targeting lasers, a live action first. A couple of B-wings are shown supporting the squadron of X-wings sent by the New Republic to help the people of Ad-Atin. Additionally, seeing the B-wings actually fire its targeting lasers is a live action first for Star Wars. This impressive piece of firepower was first shown in the animated series Star Wars Rebels when Harrison Dula first tested the B-wings for the rebellion ahead of the Galactic Civil War. I thought that was really cool. So yeah.
Nice.
Pew pew. Next, a Corellian Corvette arrives to offer support once the fighting is done. A classic ship used by the Rebellion and now the New Republic. The Corellian Corvette, owned by Princess Leia, known as the Tantive 4, was the very first Star Wars ship ever seen on screen in the opening scene of A New Hope. I got a little tickle out of this. I love seeing this. This is such a classic ship. I'm glad it's still in service. Gorgeous looking transport ship there. I love these things. Yeah. So. All right, any the reaction to the trivia, guys?
All such great flashbacks. I mean, then that's the one thing. If nothing else, whether you like Skeleton Crew or not, it so nailed the nostalgia factors and really did a great job with it. And I think that trivia shows a lot of that. Not only nostalgia factor with Star Wars itself, but with just movies and TV things we grew up on, people our age in general.
Yeah, Lacey.
And one more thing that's a little bit 80s is that Jod's downfall was monologuing.
Yes.
He monologued with his face away, like turned the other direction, just in the middle of his little and then all of a sudden, Wim's dad with like embracing his inner, oh gosh, what's her name? Tatum in Scream, the first Scream, where he's like, "Bam, bitch went down." Just like when he puts his fist together, you're like, "Oh, he's gonna do it. It's gonna be great."
Yep. All right, guys, we've got some hot topics to talk about for Skeleton Crew episode 8, The Real Good Guys. All right, this is our review, and we've got some hot topics to discuss. And the first one I wanted to ask you guys, this has been definitely a hot topic. Were you happy with Jod's turn and his fate? In a way, his fate's kind of ambiguous. We don't see what happens to him, but he definitely stays bad after he made the turn. He doesn't, become a great guy. Some people thought, like yourself, Kyle, last episode, that he wasn't redeemable. How did you feel, Kyle, about his turn and his fate?
So I like the fact they left it in the unknown, ambiguous, because this is a character I want to see again. And this is a kind of character that could appear in something else very easily. They kept him bad, but one thing I did notice, and I'm curious if you guys picked up on this too, was even for all the bad things he had done, he still seemed like he wasn't willing to cross the line to hurt the kids. He even showed concern when the Onyx crashed, because he thought she was possibly killed in the crash. Yeah, you could kind of see it on his face and just in his tone of voice. And again, this comes back to Jude Law just was phenomenal. This might be the best thing I've ever seen Jude Law do. And he's done a lot of good things, but I think that he was phenomenal in this series, playing both sides. And yet there was still something at the end here. I just felt like, maybe he kind of brought about his own downfall subconsciously without even realizing it. Like he didn't he kind of, maybe did he intentionally maybe miss a little bit when he took the shot at Fern's mom, or shot at Fern when they tried to flip the barrier off, and not just acting on chopping Wynn's dad into little lightsabery pieces. But yeah, it's very ambiguous how it ended. We don't know what his fate was. Was he taken prisoner by the Empire or by the New Republic? Did he escape? Does he escape? I think that's one of the unhanging plot threads that's out there, that whether we get a season 2 of Skeleton Crew or if we find out somewhere else, I would really like to know.
Chris of Ghostbusters quick response unit says, I don't think he was ever good. He was a con man through and through. Lacey, you want to get your thoughts on Jod? Fate.
Jod is the Brightburn version of Rey.
Explain.
That's an interesting take.
Okay, so Brightburn is a film about what happens if Superman, or a person with Superman's powers, is raised and bullied and turns bad, right?
Okay.
The bad guy, doing anything he can to stay alive, to stay on top of things, whatever. Maybe not to the violent turn that Brightburn took, because that's definitely more into the horror genre. But I think that there's so many parallels. Growing up alone, finding one person who happens to be a Jedi, who happens to be training him a little bit, and then finding out, she finds out that her story is not necessarily all on the good side. I think that, him dealing with whatever loss and that kind of thing. I mean, that's what happens when his character doesn't have, I don't know, it's a nurture versus nature thing, right? So that, I feel like this might be kind of the Brightburn version. Like if Rey hadn't gotten, I feel like he and Rey are basically polar opposites.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think, what was it? Kat said last week when he was on the show, he's like, I like him. He's turned villain. He's definitely a bad guy. And, we were kind of wondering, halfway through, like what kind of turn was going to take. And yeah, Chris said he's a con man through and through. He's a pirate, he's a scoundrel of the more evil type. And I'm glad they kind of kept it that way, because it makes his character more interesting. He didn't become good, and go, come here, Wim, give me a hug. He didn't turn that way at all. So I'm glad that we get that from him, and especially at the end when he's like, okay, it's over. You could tell that he lost. But there's just so much story left on the table there that just kind of bugs me a little bit. All these threads that could follow. What happened. I mean, now that the New Republic knows what this planet is. I mean, are they going to use this stuff to, because all of those credits basically were useless during the Empire run, because it was Empire credits only that was enforced as its currency. So unless they use the metal itself to turn into something, I don't know, but it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens next. So the next topic we have here, guys, is the cast here. Which member of the crew is the MVP, guys? And is it the same as your favorite? Lacey, back at you. By the way, I know who your favorite is, so go ahead.
Okay. So obviously my favorite is Neil, but I think MVP wise, I think we got to go to KB.
Okay.
She has, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love the fact that Neil went and got on the gunner thing and was, he was like, I got your back or whatever. But it takes a lot for she's 11, 12, somewhere in there, to legit save the planet, knowing that not knowing whether she's gonna survive. And I think that's really awesome. I think she was probably the one who, because let's face it, everything everybody else does is great, but if she doesn't succeed, they're not winning this situation.
Yeah. Kyle, what about you? Who's the MVP and which one's your favorite?
I think Jude Law as Jaw is the MVP because I think what he does, I think he elevated the kids' performances. I truly believe that. I think his performance elevated those kids, and I wouldn't be surprised just from what we've seen that he was a bit of a mentor to each of those kids anyway. But as far as like MVP, uh, KB was amazing in this series. I think she actually probably had the most interesting arcs for the four kids. As far as just how the character developed, things that went with the character, how the character was handled. And I think, you know what, I honestly do believe in some aspects too. She was given the most to work with. I mean, Neil had his moments. Wim had a couple moments. I think they kind of really shortchanged Fern in this series, but I think KB was kind of the spotlight.
I don't think because my vote's Fern's MVP. I don't think she was shortchanged at all. I mean, she was, to use the term human, she, made some, mistakes, and we learned from KB that, that she needs to listen to her crew a little bit more. But she was able to think fast, and especially get the support of, whether it's calling claimsies, but also getting support for 33 and getting him to help and stuff. And I think that as a leader of the skeleton crew with the kids, I think she did a pretty good job, and she was able to kind of learn from her mistakes. And as Chris says here, Fern grew quite a bit. And when you see that in a character development, for me, that makes a good MVP. But my favorite's Neil. I love me some Neil. I want to hang out with Neil. I want to hang out and watch some cartoons in his tub with him and just hang out. I know that sounds creepy, but I'm just saying. I want to hang out with this kid. I want to do everything he does, and I want to hang out with his family. I want to come over for dinner.
You're jealous of the big tub he has.
They showed it twice. He's in the tub twice.
It's an awesome tub, dude.
I love me some Neil, and I feel that Neil is the heart of the show as well, which I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but that's what I kind of get. He's also, I feel he's good at reading people too, and seeing the good in people as well. And he seems to be really excited about where he is, and just being with his friends too. He's having an adventure with his friends. So, and Chris also said I'd spend all day in that tub too. So yeah. Okay, guys, the next thing I want to bring up here, the next topic is here. How does Skeleton Crew, this is kind of a two-part question here. How does Skeleton Crew stack up with the other Star Wars shows that you've seen? And did Skeleton Crew live up to your expectations? Did you have any expectations? I'm going to go with you first, Lacey.
I went into this with no expectations at all. I saw one trailer and I was like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And then after that, I didn't want to see any more trailers. I didn't want to see any more. I think I just saw the teaser. It was like 15 seconds. And I was like, yep, I'm in. That being said, I was ready to go. And anything they were going to do, I was ready. I didn't have any preconceived notions of anything.
So how did it stack up with the other Star Wars shows you have seen?
I've only seen season 1 of Mandalorian. That's the only other show that I've watched. I mean, with the films, I think this is a great, ancillary product. But I've only seen, and I don't honestly know if I've even seen the whole of. I think I've seen like 7 episodes. How many is it? 10 for Mandalorian? I honestly don't know.
8 season.
Okay, so I haven't seen any other shows, so I can't really.
Okay.
Yeah, but this one's awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Kyle, what about you? How's this? I mean, obviously, we've been covering these Disney era Star Wars shows on the Fandom Podcast Network, and we'll continue to do so. So, how does Skeleton Crew stack up with the other Star Wars show, and what kind of expectations did it live up to?
So, let me start with the expectations first, because at first I was going into this with pretty low expectations because I wasn't necessarily a fan of the concept because we had just gotten it in Star Trek Prodigy, and I actually really enjoyed the first season of Star Trek Prodigy. But then I saw when they finally put out the first real trailer, I was a lot more sold because of the nostalgia factor. And I think as far as that aspect of it goes, it completely lived up to my expectations, knowing that they were kind of going for emblems version of Star Wars and things of that nature. And I think they did a very good job with it. As far as stacking it up to the other Star Wars shows, here's the thing with this show, and I think Andor's kind of falls in the same category for me a little bit, is that I think it's harder to stack up against The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and stuff like that, because this is so different from anything we've ever really gotten from Star Wars.
That's true.
The closest thing you can compare it to would be the Ewok films, and truthfully, in the spirit of what they were trying to do with those movies more aimed for kids
and like family,
family. So it stands alone, kind of like how Andor does, because I think Andor was the first what I would call fully adult Star Wars show, and I think this is just so different that I don't think it's fair to try to stack it up to other things, because it is such in a unique position for a Star Wars show. I think though, in this aspect, and it's one of the things I love about Skeleton Crew and I love about Andor, is that it's thinking outside the Star Wars box a little bit. Yes, it's Star Wars, but it's really truly giving us a different look at something in the Star Wars universe, which is something I think a lot of people have been wanting to see for a while. There's more to the universe than just the Skywalker saga and the Force be dominating everything, and the Jedi and everything like that. Yes, there was parts of that in here, but it really was something that felt like this is a tale within the Star Wars universe, not necessarily a high impact on the Star Wars universe.
Chris says, I didn't see any of the trailers and wanted to go in without any bias. I think this is a great gateway for younger kids. The Mandalorian is still on top for me. I would agree with you there, Chris. Good points there. I went in with low expectations, kind of like what you said, Kyle. But I was there was a part of me though that was really excited because I was getting that kind of Goonies, E.T., Amblin of kind of inspiration, as they call it, and I definitely got that out of it. So I didn't have a lot of expectations, but there was a little bit of giddiness there. The expectations that were building up was while I was watching the show, because I wanted all these questions answered. We got most of them answered, but not all of them. But where it stacks up, I mean, The Mandalorian is definitely my favorite. But I think you're kind of right though, Kyle. It kind of fits in its own little corner, but it was a good palate cleanser from the Acolyte for me personally. I was not a fan of the Acolyte, and it was nice to just get a different perspective of the Star Wars universe through the eyes of children, and wanting to see what else was out there instead of living in their own little bubble, which a lot of us are when we're growing up as kids. We have a bubble. We go to school, we come home, we play with our friends, we play some sports ball or would go to the movies, and then repeat it again, and a lot of us, there's a lot of people around the world where they're kind of stuck in a bubble. They don't get a chance to get out. And so it was nice to see an adventure like that mirrored a lot of those old movies that we said, like Explorers that you've brought up before, Lacey, kids building their own spaceship and meeting up with aliens, and getting out there and stuff. And I got that feeling. Yeah, Lacey.
And I gotta tell you, and I know I'm in the minority with this. I know. Please don't send the hate mail. I get it. But that's one of the reasons I love the very last scene in episode 9. Where the kids outside,
the rise of Skywalker,
where the kids outside sweeping at the very end.
Oh, the Last Jedi. You mean
that was the Last Jedi? That was the Last Jedi. Yeah.
Last Jedi. I don't know. Whatever. I know that everybody pans the third trilogy or whatever, but I just loved the fact that there was this random kid who's just sweeping up in an alleyway. He's able to real quick grab the broom. I thought that was really kind of a fun. It tells me that there's other groups of things happening out there, and I feel like this is one of those things.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. It was a pleasant surprise for me, and nice to know that I think it got 91% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's gotten some good reviews. But for our final topic, guys, the news doesn't seem too good for the future of the Skeleton Crew. What to expect, we don't know. Got an article here, Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Bad news for Skeleton Crew Season 2, which doesn't deserve it, unfortunately. Article here on Forbes.com. says Skeleton Crew ended its first season last night with an excellent finale that caps off one of Disney's best Star Wars projects. It is also the least successful by quite a wide margin, it seems. There was a lot of report, just to take a break from the article, but there was a lot of articles out there saying that this was the lowest rated Star Wars show, even less than The Acolyte. And the article goes on to say there's no real way to spin the Skeleton Crew is simply not a meaningful hit for Disney. And despite its quality, it seems unlikely it'll get a second season despite positive reviews from both critics and even jaded fans, thanks to the eternal viewership versus cost problem. This was an expensive show. As it stands, Skeleton Crew appears to be the least watched Star Wars show ever, below even The Acolyte, which set the record, coming in below Andor. Skeleton Crew did not chart with Nielsen in its first few weeks at all, something The Acolyte managed at least a couple of times. And it does not seem likely that when the chart catches up to present day, that's going to change. So it wasn't well watched, but it was cheap, right? Well, there's cheap, and then there's cheap for Disney Star Wars. While The Acolyte clocked in at an absurd 200 plus million, Skeleton Crew was only reportedly 136 million, breaking down to 17 million an episode. For the final season of Game of Thrones cost 15 million an episode. What Andor, The Acolyte, the Skeleton Crew all have in common is that they feature no core characters from the Skywalker, Dave Filoni era, needing to stand on their own. This bodes poorly for Disney's needing to get away from the Skywalker era, but it shows that they really can't effectively, at least if these budgets stay as sky high as they have been. Skeleton Crew is a generally great show, even as Star Wars fan base is consistently in turmoil in the Disney era. Most came together to acknowledge how fun a well done as it was. It got a 97% critic score and 81% audience score. And I think most people would be excited to see it return. The show is fortunate in that, unlike The Acolyte, it was designed theoretically have what feels like a concrete ending. But those behind the show really wanted more. From co-creator John Watts. Quote, "Yeah, we wanted to make sure this season had a satisfying beginning, middle, and end. But if people want to see more Skeleton Crew, we'd be happy to make more. It's exciting to think about. We've mainly been focused on telling the story, but there's always a chance that the kids could meet some surprising people in the future." So make sure you check out that article. It was a good read, guys, but I wanted to kind of get your thoughts here. So there's a very good chance that we're not going to get a second season, but we might see something in the future. Lacey, you are itching to say something.
I am so grumpy with this article. Okay. First of all, I think that the success of Disney and whether or not Disney is getting more or fewer viewers or whatever, it's not trackable anymore, because the number of people that I've seen who are getting together to go watch this show at other people's houses, where like you've got 25 people going to somebody's house to watch this episode of the show. Okay. So you're not getting the right numbers, first of all. Okay. Secondly, I think a lot of people are still very
hold on. Apparently they can track these now.
How many people
there is a way to track them. I mean, if you're counting a bunch of people going over to someone's house, obviously that's going to count as one viewership.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It seems like it's just the hardcore Star Wars fans and critics that are watching this. It's not the mass public that would, go normally see these films just for fun. And so, it's like when people got soiled on Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and then they wanted to release Solo 6 months later, and that tanked compared to how much that cost and everything. And it feels like with a combination of maybe Star Wars fatigue, Acolyte really being a decisive negative hit on fandom, that people were just like, the people that they really want to pull in to watch these and to spend more money on subscriptions for Disney Plus, we're not getting that.
Right. Okay. So, but what I was saying though was that I think that when you get groups of people who are having like viewing parties, I think that is cutting that's skewing the numbers, first of all, just like with them seeing how many views it's got, with a ticker, right? That's one thing. But the other thing is, I think that with Disney releasing the information that they're going to slow down on they stopped all physical media in Australia to begin with. They're starting to slow down in other countries, and they're slowing down on production of physical media here. And a lot of people that I know who are physical media collectors have said, you know what? I'm out. Okay. If you're not going to give it to me on physical, I'm not going to pay you $22 a month for Disney, Hulu. And I think is it ESPN or something?
I think that's a smaller group than it ever was, though. Before
I understand, but I'm just saying that I think that people are not. I think it's a deliberate thing where people are not buying viewerships anymore because they're ticked off about how Disney is. I mean, let's face it, they own everything now. They've got Star Wars, they've got Marvel, they bought Fox now. Like they've got all the things.
You're referring to the high turnover and stuff that people are able to stream, and then after a while it's not available anymore, so the people are like, give me some physical media too.
And there's also the fact that you can buy one month of Disney Plus for like $11, and then you just take that time and you get 1 month for $11 and you binge everything you want to watch, and then you wait a year and you do the same thing over again. Like that's what I used to do with Game of Thrones. I would get HBO for 1 month. I'd watch True Blood, Game of Thrones, and something else. I don't remember what it was, but for I don't know, it was like $9 a month or something. Because I'm not going to pay $11 a month to watch 3 shows.
I got you. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of it, especially with the economy right now, is in the freaking toilet for a lot of people because there's a lot of stuff going on. We don't need to get political, but I think that a lot of people are like trying to figure out how to buy their groceries. They're not trying to figure out how to keep Disney in business.
Kyle, what about you? What do you think?
Okay, Kevin, I need you to turn the knob a little bit on the show because it's time for hot take.
That one not.
Oh, you got a hot take. So is this what you would call a?
Just
from orbit take, Kyle.
Keep your finger on the button because I'm gonna cook right now.
All right. Okay.
So, I said earlier that the Skeleton Crew finale frustrated me in certain aspects of it. As much as I loved certain aspects,
I think you called it underwhelming. Is that what it was?
It was in a way. It was underwhelming because I knew when this ended that there's a good chance this is the end of Skeleton Crew. Much like the Acolyte, which even though they say they left you with feel like they left you with a concrete ending with Skeleton Crew, they really didn't. There is so many questions that are hanging to be answered. What happened to John? What is the effect all of a sudden of Ad and this Mint producing all these Republic credits being exposed and found out about? What's the effect on these kids? There's so many hanging plot threads. And we are in an era where we want to know those things. And here is the frustration, and that is the frustrating aspect to me, is there's just so many unanswered questions that you're being left to wonder. And you know what? There was a time and a place when we were okay with that. But we're not okay with that now because we have things like the MCU. We have things like what they've done with Star Wars and so many other things where the stories just keep going and going and going. But there is something else we need to factor into this. And Lacey, you kind of brought it up in your end. We got to look at where Disney is at. And we need to remember something. 2025 is technically the last of the Chapek projects.
The what?
Bob Iger, the last of the projects that were
you might want to explain that to Lacey and some of the people that don't know what you're talking about.
And what I was going, Bob Chapek, the former CEO of Disney, who actually was Bob Iger's pick to take his place when he left the last time, fumbled it. He made so many poor decisions. They took him out, and Bob came back in to fix things. Bob Iger has said on record his plans are more about quality over quantity. He was talking about Marvel about that, but he's talking about Disney across the board. He wants to get things back into theaters. He doesn't want everything jumping on streamers.
Thank you.
He wants to find the balance. Skeleton Crew was one of the final Star Wars projects that was technically launched in the Chapek era and was announced during the Chapek era. there is a chance for a Skeleton Crew season 2 if you go by what Bob Iger said. He's looking for quality over quantity. Look at how the Star Wars fans have reacted to this show. There's been a lot of positive buzz about this. Bob Iger, it's time to see if you're going to hold to your thing, to your what you say, because a lot of people are saying that it's the quality of Skeleton Crew, just like it's the quality of Andor. Are you about the quality? Yes, maybe you have to scale back the budgets a little bit. These shows' budgets are ridiculous. They're having movie budgets, and they don't need to have movie budgets. They have ways to do this. But Disney, you also have a crap ton of money, and there's a lot you can do. But on the Star Wars aspect of this too, maybe the reason why shows like this and Andor haven't pulled well in the ratings, I think The Acolyte has other issues, but they're beloved, but they're not pulling high in the ratings, is because they don't appeal to the general public out there. They are appealing to the diehard Star Wars fans. And so it's, as diehard Star Wars fans, if we want this to get into the general public, we've got to talk it up. We've got to look at it. And I think we are also entering an era where we can't just look at the ratings numbers of something and deem that as successful or not, because of how streaming works, because of where we're at. And I think it needs to be readjusted. If a show is getting quality reviews from people, even if it's not pulling in huge ratings, I think we're getting to an era where we're more likely to give that a second season than something that's a big budget that might be pulling in high ratings, but people are still panning it. I think there's a spot right now to sort that out. And there's the whole aspect of Star Wars is still trying to figure out what the hell direction Star Wars wants to go in. There's a big push to get back into the theater. Star Wars needs to be on the big screen. I'm not going to argue that at point, but there's still a place to have an occasional streaming show. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think right now the focus is getting Star Wars back on the big screen and then making the adjustment and getting some of these things on streaming to what Disney Plus was originally supposed to be. Disney Plus was meant to be a home for shows that complemented the movie universes. Just like if you go back and watch what Mandalorian season 1 was like, or you go back and you watch what the early MCU shows were like, where they enhanced characters that were within that universe instead of trying to add on all this stuff and let the movies carry the weight, let the shows bring in things that, hey, there's aspects of this show we want to see. We can graduate it to a movie. Jod should be in a movie. Neil should be in a movie. Maybe we don't see the other kids, but some of these characters deserve to have more time in the Star Wars universe. They've established that. Skeleton Crew deserves to at least have one more season. I truly believe that. Lacey, I know how you feel. You need to have 5 or 6 seasons, and I get and respect it. But I would at least like to get one more season of Skeleton Crew where maybe it leads into a film that they can tie things up in, whether it's Dave Filoni's Heir to the Empire project that they're calling it, that he's working on, whatever that is in the Filoniverse. But it deserves it. We need to get this figured out, and especially Disney, because Disney holds way too many cards right now, and I think that's part of the problem. Let's see if Iger keeps his word. Is it quality over quantity right now? And I think
Sorry, Kyle. I thought you were done.
that is the big test for Disney right now. I think with a lot of fans, is it going to be the quality over the quantity?
Lacey.
Okay, so I agree 100%. 97%. Okay, so I think that they do need to keep the movie budgets, but they need to turn them into movies. Like, if you think about what you were talking about a minute ago, $136 million for this season, okay? I did the math, and basically you came out with about 4 hours worth of Skeleton Crew. So you take 4 hours of Skeleton Crew, you use $136 million, that gives you 2 movies. That gives you 2 2-hour films that came in at less than any of the other movies that they've ever shown. Well, maybe not the originals, but like the ones that are recent, like, 7, 8, 9, the budgets on those, you've got 2 movies for what, 136. So you're talking about what, 140. So 70 million a piece. You're putting them in theaters. You're doing a 2-part, you already know you've got 2 movies, and then you have a 3rd or 4th movie. Keep the budget that what it is, put it in the theaters. People don't have time to see 13 different TV shows from Star Wars to stay up to date. they have time to do date night with their husband, wife, kids, whatever, and go to the movies once a month or once every 6 months.
Or at least afford it.
One counterpoint to that, though, and I'll just say this: it's much cheaper to market a television show than it is to market a movie.
I don't know with Star Wars though. I mean, there's so much Star Wars. I mean, realistically, if they're doing the Mandalorian TV show, they turn that into a movie. If you've got the Acolyte movie, it's so saturated right now that if they did a what Marvel did, it used to be you'd get a Marvel movie every year and a half, maybe 2 years, and now you get one every 3 months.
4 months.
You know?
Yeah.
And so if they just slowed it down, did one movie from somewhere in Star Wars every 6 months, keep it fresh, keep it in the theaters, do one Christmas time and one in the summer. So you've got 2 blockbuster time frames and you're good to go. And then everyone can stay up to date. And then everyone gets their freaking social media. I will die on this hill.
Okay. You know, it's interesting too. And it feels like Disney Lucasfilm couldn't wait to cancel The Acolyte. Because I think it was like a week later, maybe 2 weeks at the most. It was just like, yep, nope, we're no more Acolyte. We're canceling any thoughts of season 2. As you touched on earlier in your hot take there, Kyle, is that I believe that there's a lot of good, feedback about this series that hopefully will, make it live on in one way or another. Because it would be really, really nice to see that. And Chris says, I agree with you. Oversaturation is the problem. And yeah, that's how it's been for a while, unfortunately, and it's we although it's been way too long since we've had a Star Wars movie in the theater, 2019, and they've made so many goddamn announcements and then canceled them and made a big spiel about it at like the D23s and then they've canceled them, and it's just becoming the same old, story, and it's a little depressing when it comes to it. But guys, I want to get your final thoughts on Skeleton Crew, a season in whole. Lacey, start with you.
Wow. Okay, was not expecting you to start with me. That's okay. I think that as a standalone season, I don't think that this is as good as it would have been. If there are more seasons to come, I think this is a fantastic starting point. This is a great origin story. This is super fun. This is like especially the final episode. It gave that good adventure-y vibe that we were kind of looking forward to since the original 3. I think that the cute baby elephants make me happy. That and all of them, not just the one, not just Neil. I love how they took 4 children, and each of them is very, very different. Right? Each of them has a very specific personality. Each of them, it wasn't just like, oh, that group of kids. It wasn't like, the old school, what is it, Little Rascals or whatever, I think that they have so much possibility with dealing with the repercussions of losing the shield. I think that there are going to be people on both sides of the argument saying like, the kids save the day, but then at the same time, it's kind of like an arsonist who sets fires just to put it out. Like, the kids saved the day, yeah, but they caused the problems as well. So I think there's a lot of, potential for figuring out where it's going to go from here. I also think that there is something to be said for the idea that they're legitimately living in a cult situation where a droid is running their world. Like, there's something to be said. I feel like they didn't scratch that surface enough. I want to see like how they submitted to a droid running their planet. I want to know how that happened, because that's not a thing that you just do. You don't just go, oh, well, the machine will take care of it. Like, that's not a thing. I mean, maybe it is, but I just don't feel I like my autonomy enough, but to disagree with that kind of thing. So I think that there's a lot more to discuss and discover. I would love if they would take this as a standalone season and make this like the preempt and then go into a series of 3 or 4 movies. I think that'd be great. I want to see these on the big screen. I want to see them on a 30 by, whatever foot screen. These are big, high budget things. I want to see the lightsabers and I want to hear it in THX. Like, I want more of this. but I want it my way. So
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, Kyle, your final thoughts on season 1, hopefully, of Skeleton Crew.
There's something to the magic of nostalgia, especially in this case, when you're taking something as beloved as Star Wars and mixing in that Amblin feel, which is what they were trying to get going. And it's something that can be very special if done right. Skeleton Crew really did get that part of things right. And that's what makes it, I think, so magical and what has made it appeal to everybody. Also, it was something that did the great job of keeping itself lighthearted and fun, even with some heavy moments in it. You had a great villain. You had a amazing performance, not only by Jude Law, but by these kids as well. This Skeleton Crew, if given the chance, has the chance to become what Stranger Things was, which was, here we have this young cast that we can grow up with. Now, obviously, Stranger Things got kind of sidetracked because of COVID, the strike, and it kind of took away a little bit of that magic aspect of Stranger Things. And even though we got season 5 coming, you can't say it. If everything would have been on a normal timetable, Stranger Things season 5 would be one of the biggest things we would be talking about of all time, probably. Skeleton Crew has that kind of potential, but because of the state of things, it's going to be. Could it go down as one of those things? It's like, man, it's like Firefly or Almost Human, or some of those shows that just get canceled before, that are good, but they don't give them a chance to really get their footing. And I think that's kind of the thing with Skeleton Crew. We got a great fun first season with a lot of intrigue. But the problem is, and this is, like I said before, this is the problem with a lot of the streaming shows right now, is they can't seem to write it well enough where they can wrap everything up and make it feel like, okay, if the season ended, we don't have more questions. They seem to write it like, oh, we're going to get a second season. And that's what Skeleton Crew feels like to me. And that's the issue. If I am praying we get a second season, because I think there's so much more story there to tell. But it's a state of limbo. And I think that's unfortunately what also ends up bringing Skeleton Crew down for the time being. If we get an announcement of season 2, I think season 1 they uplift season 1 by announcing that. We'll see what happens. Yep. But as far as it stands out alone, it's got a very special magic and a very special place within Star Wars that it is unique to Skeleton Crew and Skeleton Crew only.
Well said. By the way, I'm going to shout out Kenneth. Join us in the chat there. Appreciate you. He loves Skeleton Crew. And you know, it's interesting, Lacey. I think Ghostbusters Chris, quick response unit was replying to seeing, Skeleton Crew on the big screen. He's like, IMAX, baby. Can you imagine some of the scenes in this TV series being on a huge IMAX screen? Like the Onyx Cinder, shedding its skin from that big crab thing, seeing that on the
planetarium, that whole episode with the planetarium.
Oh god, yeah, god, yeah. This series for me hit a lot of nostalgic points for me, and that's what I was kind of hoping to get from it. And when I look at all of the characters, the 4 main kid characters, I saw a little bit of me in each of them, which was kind of fun, and it was a good collection of the actors doing a great job, by the way. And I want to quote Chris here. He says, "I also like they acted and sounded like children, not children with adult lines." Excellent point there, Chris. You felt like they were you at that age, and visually I thought it was great, and I love that we got just the whole pirate theme as well, and then we got this underlying mystery of Ad-Atten and what are we gonna, but it leaves the questions like, well, what's gonna happen next? We want to know. We don't want that kind of out there. I don't want to see it in a goddamn comic book. I'm not gonna read that. I don't care. I need to see this in live action. I need to see these visuals in live action, and I hope that the great feedback does do that, because I feel like we with the great feedback that we got from Andor, we did get an Andor season 2. We didn't have to, but we did, and so I'm looking forward to that in a couple of months. But I just want to thank the creators and the people behind the Skeleton Crew. You guys did a great job of helping us with the nostalgia that we love here at the Fandom Podcast Network. And I think we had a good time of it, guys. So anyway, Kyle, I'm going to turn over the rest of the show to you.
Oh, real quick, I think Lacey has something she wants to chime in real quick.
Oh, does she have a hot take?
I do have a hot take, and this is about streamers in general, but more specifically, very much for Disney. I would give up every streaming service that I have if they would go back to producing content, putting it in the theaters, selling it, through cable and all that kind of stuff. Streaming has destroyed the film industry. It has destroyed the excitement of going to the theater. Yeah. And I would absolutely give up all of the streaming. I don't need Apple. I don't need Paramount. I don't need Disney. I don't need any of that. I don't need it. Maybe there's a reason I don't need it. That's fine. But I think that
Lacey just showed off her entire video collection for you listeners out there.
I would absolutely, I would get rid of all of that. They wouldn't have to. I mean, I feel like they were trying to. It's a money grab. Streaming is a money grab. They're refusing to give you the DVDs and everything, the physical media, because they want you to have to subscribe to get what they offer.
And people know that, hey, I don't need to go see it in the theater if it's going to be available at home in a month.
And I understand that, like, you get to us, when I was a kid and my parents stopped kind of going to the movies after they hit like 50-ish. I'm 51. I will still go to a movie theater. I never envision a time, unless, it's COVID. But I do not envision a time where I would just be like, no, I'd rather stay at home. I want to see them on the big screen. I want to have that excitement. I want to see people dressing up. I want to see cosplay. I want to see all that. I want to see all the fun. It takes away from the movie moment when you have it on streaming, especially with the stuff where they did like streaming and in the theaters at the same time. How do you gauge how much money it made when you're offering it on streaming and at the theater? Like, that just doesn't. Yeah. The numbers are skewed. It's just awful. I hate everything. I'll be fine.
Lacey, I will tell you this, that there is a long lost episode of Culture Clash deep within the Fandom Podcast Network archives that has yet to be recorded that is going to be about this very subject at some point.
Let's go. I have thoughts. I will talk about this for days.
With that, guys, we are going to wrap up our discussion on Skeleton Crew, but we aren't quite done yet. Oh no, we still have one more big thing to happen on this Culture Clash, so let's get to it. Buy it, stream it, or unsee it. That's right. It's time for a little buy it, stream it, or unsee it, our review section here on Culture Clash. Did you love it enough to buy it? Was it good enough to watch? But maybe I'll just keep it on a streamer. Or if Lacey had her way, there would be no streaming option apparently. But or do we just unsee it because, oh my God, what did I just do to my eyeballs by watching this? We have some interesting movies to talk about. So spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about some these films, maybe getting a little spoilery. So if we start talking about something you don't want to get spoiled, drop out, come back. We watch this section on our YouTube channel, or hit pause on your audio listening device, whether it's your phone, podcast catcher, whatever, and then come back and join us after you've watched the film. And of course, Letterboxd. We love our friends at Letterboxd. Kevin, you started this a couple of years ago, but really got into it last year with your movie, or I should say 2 years ago with your movie watching, and then proceeded to break your own personal record in year 2. How is year 3 marching along?
Probably not as much as Lacey's, but I'm at 37 films as of January 1st, 2025. So I'm chugging along, Yeah.
Lacey, where are we at?
I'm at 47.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, I guarantee if Lacey had kept track of her movie watching from last year, she probably would have had twice as many as me.
I will say that I do also, because I'm just keeping them out on my phone. But I will say that out of all of these, only 4 have been on streaming. Everything else has been DVD, Blu-ray, or in a theater.
There we go. Well, let's get into a little buy it, stream it, or unsee it. And our first movie is Girl Haunts Boy, starring When Peyton List famous from Cobra Kai. Okay, hit me up here on Lacey on Girl Haunts Boy.
Okay, this is the cutest little movie. It's very sweet. It's
We do have what you call the elevator pitch from IMDb.
Okay.
Or the quick plot synopsis here.
Yeah.
It says follows
follows-
B.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Follows B, a teenager ghost who forms a special friendship with Cole, the new guy in town, whose house has been inhabiting for over 100 years. Starring Peyton List, Michael Cimino, and Andrea Navito. Directed by Emily Ting.
right.
Lacey?
Okay, so it's a super cute movie. It's kind of got a little bit of it feels like a long Buffy episode. But because there's kind of, she goes to a museum in the 1900, like 1920, she goes to a museum, she picks up a ring she's not supposed to touch, then it's cursed, right? And she walks outside and gets hit by a car. Okay, so then she's a ghost. The whole problem is that no one can see her. It's been 100 years. And the kid finds, like behind the wall, finds what was left over from where her parents locked it, put up all of her things and put it in a closet. And that closet must have gotten, covered over at some point. So he accidentally finds it when they move in. He sees the ring. He's like, oh, what's that? He puts it on. Oh, he can talk to the ghost girl. They have to figure out how to get her back, like to uncurse her. So there's like this fun little thing. There's a lot of there's a lot of comedy to it. Both of them have great comic timing. There's a lot of things that you would expect as far as like someone from 1920s not knowing things that are in the 2020s. But it's got a good female empowerment vibe to it because she's kind of goes against the stream. You can tell, like, if she had lived another 7 or 8 years, she would have been like a flapper, and it's got a lot of music based in it. He is his father was a musician. He's a musician. There's a lot of music. So if you dig music or if you like fun little ghosty movies, there's no scary. It's not scary. It's a fun. It's almost a supernatural rom-com.
So are you calling it a buy it, a stream it, or and then see it, Lacey?
I will buy this if I can find it in China.
There we go. Next up, we are continuing with the Netflix vibe here, I've never heard of this, but Lacey, it has somebody who I'm a big fan of, and that is Harry Connick Jr. The name of the film is Find Me Falling. After a failed comeback album, rock star John Allman escapes to a dreamy Mediterranean island, only to discover that his new cliffside home has an unfortunate notoriety that attracts unwanted visitors and an old flame. We've got Harry Connick Jr. in this, Angie Scott, and Ali Fumiku Whitney in this. So hit us up, Lacey. What are your thoughts on Find Me Falling?
Okay, this is okay. I love Harry Connick Jr. I'll watch everything he does. I went to a concert once. He called me Satan from stage. It was hilarious and awesome. That's a whole different story. Anyway, this is super fun. The unfortunate circumstances about the cliff in front of his house is that this is a place where people, not only from the island of Cyprus, but people from around the world come there to commit suicide. They come there to stand on the cliff and then jump. And so half the film is him trying to figure out how to like build a fence. And it's just, he looks like he's building a chicken coop and it's just not very effective. And it's really funny. And he's got this laid back kind of laissez-faire comic timing in it that is something. If you've seen any of his films where he has some comedic lines, he just has that way of drop, like just sort of like sprinkling them in, and you don't expect it, and he's just so funny. The love interest is delightful. The culture is fantastic. Half the film, the reason I love this so much, anyone who lives in Cyprus and does not speak English speaks Greek. That's the way it works. When you go to a vacation place, you don't necessarily see everybody speaking English. That's a big problem I have with a lot of Netflix movies, is that they go to somewhere like, Greece or Turkey or something, and then everyone automatically speaks English, and you're like, oh, come on. So there's some significant subtitles. So you may or may not, if you don't like subtitles, you're not gonna like this movie. If you like Harry Connick Jr., you're gonna love this movie.
Well, what was it for you, Lacey?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
So it would be another buy it.
Yeah, I would buy it if it was.
I almost watched this last year, and then I forgot to follow up with it. So it's one it's been on my radar because it's one of those, when it first came on, it would show like a banner on Netflix, and you would see like the trailer for it, and he's like, he thinks that he buys this really nice place, and then like people are wanting to commit suicide on his property.
Yeah, and it's also a side of Harry Connick you haven't seen before, because the 2 or 3 times that he's like walking around his house with his shirt off, he's got like, he's supposed to be a rock star, not the music that he usually sings in his, so he's taken kind of a left turn. He did write and sing all the songs in the film. But he's supposed to be an aging rock star. Okay, so he's got like tattoos down his like his chest and down his arms, and he's a little bit more metal, I guess, than you would expect Harry Connick to be able to pull off. But he did it. I was a little bit shocked that he was able to pull off like the lots of like chest tattoos and all kinds of stuff, and it was just like, okay.
Could it be that this is a hair metal movie that Kevin needs to see?
It's got a hair of metal. Like that's
there we go. Well, so it is a buy it for Miss Lacey.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
2 thumbs up. Dig it. Yeah.
Let's move on, Mr. Reitzel, to something you've seen, and this is actually a movie that is making the rounds in the news because it is the return after 10-year absence, which is mind-blowing to me. It doesn't feel like it's been 10 years, but Cameron Diaz is back in movies, Kevin, and she's back in movies with her good friend Jamie Foxx in a movie appropriately titled Back in Action, exclusive to Netflix.
This movie dropped today. I was able to get a chance to watch it before we started the show today. And this was on my radar. I was looking forward to that because I was missing Cameron Diaz in movies. I was hoping that she was just like gone. And what's funny, I was looking back on her IMDb. In 2014, she had 3 films come out. She had The Other Woman, Sex Tape, and Annie, who she also co-starred with Jamie Foxx. She's been in 3 films with him. The first one was in Any Given Sunday, and then now this one, Back in Action. And what I like about it too is that Jamie Foxx, if you guys know, was out of commission for a while because of that really bad health scare that he had, and they had to delay the filming of this film or this movie because I think they started it and then he had the issue, and he almost died. And so they had to wait a while till he got healed and he came back. And to kind of give you a little quick synopsis here on this, former CIA spies Emily and Matt are pulled back into espionage after their secret identities are exposed. Directed by Seth Gordon, of course, stars Jamie Foxx, Cameron Diaz. Their kids in this movie are really good. They're played by McKenna Roberts, Rylan Jackson, and Kyle Chandler from Friday Night Lights fame, and Glenn Close, who plays the grandmother or the mother of Cameron Diaz. This was a fun movie. It's kind of like a True Lies scenario, but a little bit different to where their identities they are forced to basically be presumed dead after an instant thing because she also finds out she's pregnant. They are put to they're partners, but they hook up obviously. And they decide to, everyone thinks that we're dead. Let's go off the grid and create a new life and have this baby. And they end up having 2 kids. Takes place 15 years later. And of course, their past comes to haunt them. And meanwhile, they're dealing with a teenage daughter and a soon to be teenage boy. And there's some very funny moments. And I just going to say this, the chemistry between Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz is phenomenal. I love seeing these guys perform together. And for me, I would say it's a buy it, but definitely a stream it. And they definitely leave it at the end for a follow-up, which I hope they do. I hope these guys come back for another one. But I was just happy to see Cameron Diaz back because she is freaking funny. Of course, we know Jamie Foxx is funny. I love her in this. She gets to kick some butt again. I love her in Night and Day with Tom Cruise. And I think this is one of those roles that I think that they should definitely get back together and do. It's a fun movie. It's not too violent, so you can watch it with younger people as well, because obviously kids are involved. It's funny when they go on the run, and it's funny too because it's filmed overseas in London area, and then they come back and they're hiding out in Atlanta area as a family, and then they have to go back to London, and Glenn Close's character comes into the scene, and Kyle Chandler is great. I love Kyle Chandler, but I definitely recommend it. It was a fun watch.
I've just got a couple quick things to add on this. I read an article about this movie today, and Jamie Foxx was the reason Cameron Diaz came and did this movie, because she was thinking about coming back to acting, but she wasn't real sure because of her chemistry and relationship with Jamie Foxx, because of Any Given Sunday and Annie and just the friends they've been. He was the one who reached out to her and asked her to come back for this film, and she agreed to do that.
Their chemistry is phenomenal. They were so funny and so much fun to watch. The repertoire, the witty banter between them, and having to deal with the teenage daughter and her antics too, and then the kids eventually finding out who they are. It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun.
The one quick question I had though for both you and Lacey, the CIA former spy, or I've hidden, or I've lost my memory or whatever, it's been played a lot out lately on a lot of different things.
They actually make a reference to Jason Bourne in this. He's like, "Yeah, we're like that, but we didn't lose our memory."
So I'm just wondering though, are you guys kind of feeling like maybe we're getting a little bit too many of this kind of film? I mean,
no.
Okay.
You know what? I feel like, because I haven't seen this, and now that you've said it, I will be watching this probably later tonight. But what it sounds like is Mission Impossible 1, they failed to keep the knock list safe, and this is the repercussion of that, but with comedy. Right.
There is an item that is there is an item that is part of this whole thing that comes back to haunt them later.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
I don't have a problem with this. This is a fun trip, and you use it in any. It's not just CIA. It's in. I mean, let's face it. It's in half a dozen Hallmark movies. She gets into a car accident, she loses her mind, or
we're gonna find a way to slip Hallmark in one way or the other on this on this show.
I mean, this goes back to Shakespeare and what's it?
It depends on how it's delivered, and this one is delivered where there's several other lower B action films that do the same thing, and they don't quite deliver. It's just like Lacey said in the Hallmark thing, it's like how it's going to end, but you want to see from A to B and the shenanigans that take place between that, whether it pays off or not. And there's a lot of Hallmark films that are all the same, and some of them pay off and some of them don't.
It's about the journey, not the destination, Kyle.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the journey, this journey of Culture Clash is about to close it up. So let's get to the end of the show. That's right. You have been watching Culture Clash live here on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. We hope you've enjoyed what we've been doing in our amazing coverage of all things Skeleton Crew. It has been a fun ride. Lacey, first of all, I wanted to say thank you. I know this was a little bit outside your box. You usually like to binge watch these shows, but I'm so glad you joined us.
Yeah,
this week to week and trying it that way. And I'm curious now, is this through this experience, is this something that you might try to find another show that makes it to become a weekly watch show for you?
I don't know if it's going to be the same for Star Wars, but I do think that I will for the Marvel stuff that comes out. So
maybe like Daredevil Born Again when that starts up?
Oh, yeah. I didn't get a chime in when y'all were talking about that because we went straight to Bob Uecker. I am super stoked for Charlie Cox anytime he does anything. I flew to New York to see him and Hiddleston and Zoe Ashton do their Broadway play, Harold Pinter's Betrayal. They were super sweet. Charlie's he's done Dragon Con a bunch of times. He's like one of the nicest humans on the planet. I will absolutely support anything that he does.
Good to know. Well, maybe Lacey will be back when we throw her on the little True Believers to cover Daredevil.
I just want to give a shout out to a movie that I watched that I wasn't planning on watching until later in the year because it's part of our Time Warp 1990.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's I think it's during our October run, but because it was streaming on Amazon, I think, and Amazon seems to listen to me knowing that we're going to talk about 1990 movies. It's a reunion of Best of the Best crew, Eric Roberts and James Earl Jones in a movie called The Ambulance. It's
Oh,
kind of
yes.
a dark comedy, little edge of horror. Imagine what happens when a comic book artist and writer in New York come across an ambulance that goes around collecting the people that get hurt, but then don't take them to the hospital, and has sinister results in it. But what's really cool about it is that you actually have a small acting part in several scenes with Stan Lee playing himself, because the guy, Robert's character, actually works at the Marvel Studios, where they're in New York. So it was really nice to see Stan Lee come in and say a few things. And I just like the concept of this mysterious ambulance picking up people from the streets and then not taking them to the hospital.
Here's the thing about that movie, Kevin, real quick, is I remember watching that movie, and at the time it came out, the reason why I watched it is, when you grow up as a kid and you're homesick and you end up picking a soap opera to watch. Well, mine ended up being The Young and the Restless. And Eric Braeden, who plays Victor Newman in The Young and the Restless, has a big part in the ambulance.
He's the villain, man. He's the villain. Yeah, it's just a rando thing I wanted to mention on Culture Clash. Check out The Ambulance 1990. I believe it was Amazon that was streaming for free. So check it out.
Yeah, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, I just snuck a Young and the Restless reference into Culture Clash. I'm proud of myself. It goes on the bingo card.
I just want to give a shout out to Chris, Ghostbusters Chris Response Unit, Adam for checking in as well. Kenneth, thank you guys. Really appreciate you guys participating in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, a special shout out to Kenneth too. He has been an avid supporter of the Fandom Podcast Network for a long time.
Who?
Sharing out Kenneth.
Yes,
he has shared out a lot of our shows and let us post on his pages as well. So great shout out to him. He's been a great fan and supporter of the network. We love that. So again, a quick reminder too, if you want more Skeleton Crew coverage, we're not done with it here at the Fandom Podcast Network. Soon, What a Piece of Junk will be putting out their thoughts on the series finale of Skeleton Crew. So check out the latest episode of What a Piece of Junk, which will be dropping soon. The guys at the Drunken Gungan doing their thing. Again, this has been Culture Clash Live, covering all things Skeleton Crew and what's been happening in fandom. Skeleton Crew's over. What's next for us? Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out in 2025. We're going to have a big year here at the Culture Clash and at the Fandom Podcast Network. And again, wrapping things up, Skeleton Crew. We hope you've been enjoying the show. This is the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find us in a lot of places, including our live YouTube channel. If you're watching now, of course, we are also on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and of course, now we are on Blue Sky. Kevin, where can people find us on Blue Sky?
Fan Pod Network on Blue Sky.
And of course, you can find all of us on the different social medias as well. You can find me, Kyle, on Blue Sky at AKyleW. You can find me at AKyleW also on Twitter and on Discord. You can also find me on Threads and Instagram at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on the socials?
You can find me at Spartan_Phoenix on Instagram, X, Letterboxd, Discord, and also on Blue Sky, Spartan Phoenix.
And Lacey, you are panted all over the social medias.
Yes, I am on all the places as Lacey Pants, with the exception of Instagram, where I am the Lacey Pants. It's Lacey with 2 E's. I don't know if I ever said that before, but if you're not watching, you wouldn't necessarily know how to spell my name. I will also say that I am participating in the Lights Out event. So I'm going to go off of all social media between January 19th and 26th. So if you hit me up in that time, I won't be on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Messenger, or WhatsApp.
A good mental cleanse. That's all.
Yes.
There we go. But guys, too, before we get out of here, just a reminder, check out our TeePublic store. So just go to teepublic.com, search for the Fandom Podcast Network, or type in any of the shows of the Fandom Podcast Network, because we have got the gear on TeePublic, whether it's t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts, hoodies, pillows. I got one back behind me. You see Lacey sporting her FPN gear. Kevin, I believe you were sporting a Culture Clash shirt there.
Yes.
So check it out. Any purchases made a little bit kicks back to us to help us keep the lights on around here. And you know what? I haven't fed the kaiju down in the FPNet basement in a while. He's getting hungry, and getting a little scary. So, check out, we could use some extra kibble for the kaiju. Just saying. check us out on TeePublic. Guys, this has been Culture Clash Live. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we are so appreciative of all of you out there. Skeleton Crew is done. What's coming next on Culture Clash? Oh, we have some things planned, and we are going to have some fun. But until then, as always, respect each other, and most importantly, enjoy your fandom. We have done this thing, and we are out of here. We will see you next time, everyone.